maybe. Was there a robbery? We can
Red Sox
turn into things.
You got Padres. I got Red Sox. Funny, we're doing baseball stuff.
Yeah.
We're in
are you a pretty big baseball fan?
Yeah, huge. Yeah, played in high school and college. Long time Red Sox fan, die hard. Yeah. After 2004, that was all I needed. I was fine. Like,
yeah, what a relief,
I didn't
right?
need them to win.
What a relief, right? I mean,
yeah.
So many times, so many great teams never quite getting there. And just today, I don't know if you follow on Twitter or X, as people call it now, but there's a guy named Nat Gaetti. He and I were collaborating, and we did a NEPTA. Not enough people talk about Bill Buckner, and so we put Bill Buckner in there. And the thing here's the thing, and I'm going to break my own rule.
I love Buckner.
I don't ever talk about '86. Because it's not what defines him. Yeah, he made a mistake. Right. So did Leon Durham. So did a lot of people. Alex Gonzalez should have fielded that ground ball for the Cubs and gotten a double play, and there'd be no Bartman at all, right? So we just
Buckner is the poster child. That was such a huge moment because it was the Red Sox. Those other guys you mentioned, they didn't play for the Red Sox. But yeah. I totally agree with your point. But I'm a huge Buckner fan. I went to so many games in the mid '80s when he was on the team, and he was the first guy on the field stretching and running, and he could barely run. He had terrible legs, and he actually led them in stolen bases. I think it was 85. He had 16 or 18 stolen bases, and they were never a running. They didn't run. They weren't a running team for a long time. And but I love Buckner, and I actually have one of his bats. Bats.
That's great.
It's what the black bat, the black and the wood on the bottom. Yeah. So I think had he played, had two more good years, he'd probably be in the Hall of Fame because he had 2,750 for hits, right?
Yeah, 2,700. Yeah, he's that close, right? 1 season, 2 seasons, and I was just writing about this today on there. He starts out in the Dodgers in the early '70s.
Yep,
we're loaded with talent. Just loaded, and so how do you even get in the lineup? Even if you're good.
Yeah.
They had guys sitting on the bench that were could play on other teams, and so if he had broken in a little earlier, or if he traded to bring in something that they need, whatever. There's so many things. He loses 63 games to work stoppages, between 72 and 81.
That's a good point. I never even thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. There's all these extra hits, and he is a remarkable guy. I learned another thing about him today too. So he grew up in Napa, which is 2 towns over from where I grew up.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he struck out. Ready? One time his senior year in high school. One time.
Wow.
Once. Yeah.
I wonder if it was looking or swinging.
I don't know.
I wonder if it was looking, he could be like, that wasn't a strike,
Yeah. It's amazing when you think about these heroes, because that's what he is. And I'll say this: he's one of the greatest hitters of all time. If you put all of the people who've ever been on the earth, cut all the ones out that ever played Major League Baseball, cut all the ones out that never, that were pitchers, and you just look at the tiny group of people that were hitters, he's way at the top of that hill. Yeah. Is he the top guy? No. But is he top 200? Yeah.
200, yeah. He was great.
Yeah.
I was a big, but I loved Boggs back then, and Boggs and Gwynn. I love Gwynn. I was so happy when I first moved to LA. I moved to LA in '97, and one of my first things was I have to go see a Padres game. I need to see Gwynn before he retires. So we actually went down and saw Pedro. The Red Sox came to San Diego. I forget what year it was. It was late '90s around there, and Pedro pitched, and it took us 6 hours in traffic to get down there. We left a little bit late. And we had awful traffic. We missed the first inning, I think, but I did see Gwynn get 2 hits, so I was so excited about that. And he's gone way too young. Oh, what a shame.
Now Ricky, it's so terrible.
Yeah, Ricky was young too. Saw Ricky play many times live. Yeah,
same. Yeah, and what a fantastic player. Going back to Buckner, he and Pedro both share the same thing where the manager's like, I'm going to leave my guy in. I want him to be in there. And then it blew up in both those managers' faces.
I could feel the whole entire Red Sox nation telling Grady, take him out. And he just kept him in. We all knew that was,
can you blame the guy? And like, this is my guy. This is my
Yeah,
guy. I'm
but
gonna stay
he was
with him.
done. He was done. I felt like he was done. And I think, and he also, don't forget, he kind of had been doing that all year. And we were all worried about that. It was one of Grady's things. He made a lot of bad decisions. I can just hear my dad's voice, screaming about it still. But yeah, so I blame him. But I mean, it was Grady, right? Grady Little, that was the guy, right? I'm not.
Yeah, Grady. Yeah.
Sometimes my mind, I forget. Yeah.
Who was the manager in 85?
85, 86 was McNamara, I think, right?
McNamara, right.
McNamara. And I liked McNamara.
And he had been polling Buckner for defense late in the game, right? And he's like, yeah, exactly. And he's going to leave him in. It's terrible. Yeah. By the way, here's the thing I found out about Bill Buckner.
Yeah.
Of all of the top 20 first basemen who have assists, right, using their arm, he is first off in the top 20. Holy shit. He plays the least amount of games among all the guys at first, and he still made the top 20. And his rate, like per 9 innings, is the highest of those guys.
Interesting.
And it's yeah. So do you have a sense for his, like, was he just playing for pitchers that got guys to pound the ball into the ground and he'd run over and flip it to Barrett or flip it to Oil Can or something? Or how did he get so many assists?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's all it is, right? Is really throwing, just flipping it to first. That's probably a high percentage of them, and then maybe throwing to second, and maybe getting the cutoff from the outfield to home plate. It's a really interesting point. I don't know.
Yeah. I've looked in some of the historic, because I love this kind of stuff. I talk about baseball all day, but I was looking through, and it takes time to comb through each out, and then the errors, and like try to figure out what you can look at the score and be like, oh, okay, it went 3-6-3. Okay, all right, that's shortstop. Okay, it's a double play, but you can't tell, like, if it goes like, first base to pitcher, did he have to laser beam it? Did he have to dive and make a great play? Yeah. And here's the thing: is top 20 in assists. He's not top 20 in putouts. So he wasn't there very often, and he didn't get to a lot of balls compared to his peers. He wasn't bad, but
interesting. Yeah.
So it's something in there. There's some kind of thing in there where he stood out with his arm.
Yeah.
Did he peg a lot of dudes at third? How many guys can you peg at third? If you tried, you only have so many opportunities.
Right.
Yeah. When the Red Sox won, God, you guys, what a gift, right? You guys suffered.
It was crazy.
Suffered in 60,
crazy.
Yeah. And then the only time, down 3-0, you guys came back.
I'll never forget the feeling. I'll never forget the feeling I had watching Game 4. I had friends over. We were watching the game. This is in just south of Brentwood on the west side in LA. And the game it went into. Did it go to extra innings? I think, right? Did it go into? I think it went into extra innings. I just remember it was a really long game, and we were like, we're hungry. Should we? They're going to lose this game. I was convinced they were going to lose, but we ran across the street and ordered food at this restaurant called Bandera, the steakhouse. I had worked for the company for a long time, so I loved that restaurant. And we went in and we were waiting at the bar watching the end of the game. And we saw them win from the bar. And I'll never forget the feeling I had seeing the team cheering. I was like, and I remember thinking, they really think they can win. Like sometimes you see a team in Game 4 and they're just defeated, and win or lose, you could tell they didn't think, they let it go. But I was like, no, they really genuinely think they're going to win this series. Like I felt that in my bones. I was like, wow, but I still didn't believe it as a Red Sox fan. I'm like, they're going to lose in 5 or 6. I said, watch them lose in 7, and break our heart again. Our hearts. But it was what a year, and then the series itself was just like a foregone conclusion. They just rolled over the Cardinals. It was the Cardinals, right? And then in 07 it was the Rockies.
I believe so, yeah. And the Cardinals had a big, wasn't that the year that Pujols hit that smash
against the
Astros?
Yes. He almost took the wall down. He hit it so hard against the wall.
God. Yeah. And so think about the Cubs in 03 when they were on the brink.
With what's his name?
Bartman, that whole thing.
Yeah. What was the guy's name who went to catch it? That Alou?
Moises Alou. Moises, yeah. By the way, I lived across the street from Wrigley Field, so I was in a rooftop house, and I lived. And our view was of the wall in right field, but if you went up one floor up to the top, you could see in from the bleachers, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
And so, it was great. It was like Mardi Gras, and oh my God, it was so exciting. So, the way the TVs worked, you'd hear the roar of the crowd, roar, and then you'd be like, something big just happened. And like a beat later, the front TV in the house boom, and then be like a bunch of people in there partying. Roar!
That's funny.
And then
that's really funny.
The TV in the kitchen would go. It was like boom, 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 like fireworks.
Like almost like a wave.
Yeah. And so my buddy and his dad, both Gary O'Reilly, they were standing behind Bartman when that all happened. They're in the shot, the classic shot there. My buddy Gary's like this, right behind him.
Yeah, crazy.
And so what's crazy is like these things happened to teams, the Cubs and the Red Sox. It was so amplified. So Alex Gonzalez gets a tailor-made double play ball, can't bag it, and that's why he was there. He's a good bat with a good glove, and he couldn't do it. And then there were still chances to come back. And then a whole game 7, just like in 86.
I'm forgetting exactly what happened, but it's like vaguely in my mind because the Red Sox stuff is seared. Yeah.
Right. So you have these long suffering fans. The White Sox, they won in 05.
They won with Guillen, right? With Ozzie Guillen.
Yeah.
Who's next now? So Cleveland hasn't won, right? Cleveland's the last one standing, I guess.
Yeah, Cleveland of those teams, and then of course the Brewers have been around for a long time and have never won.
They've never won. They didn't win with Yount and
those
guys in like 83 or something.
They got to the series 82. The Cardinals beat them.
Oh, yeah. Ozzie Smith.
Yeah. And then, you got to get the Mariners. They've had no luck. I mean, they
had that team that won 112 or whatever, or 116, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And so they haven't done it, but I think that's it now, right? Yeah, because the Rangers finally got off the schneid. Yeah, it's great. So you've always been a baseball guy. You played in college. Pitcher, first base?
I was first base. I play out just to full disclosure. So I played in high school, but I didn't try out till my junior year it's a long story, but I ended up playing 2 years in high school. And then I went to UMass Amherst. It was Division I, and I didn't get a scholarship or anything. So I just tried out, but I had no shot. To walk on there, you just got to do something amazing. And I just wasn't good enough. And then I went to a Division III school called Merrimack College, who has a very famous hockey program in the Hockey East. But at the time, their baseball was Division III, and the coach there, it was a new coach, and he had seen me play that summer. And I was 18. I was playing the 16 to 18 league, and he had seen me play. And then I played in the fall. They kept like an extended roster in the fall, so I played, and I felt personally like I was good enough to make the spring team. But when it came down to the end, he cut me for the spring team. So I only played in the fall. So I did play, but I got a bunch of hits, and I got my taste, I guess. So and then I played a little intercity league in the summer after that, which is kind of like a semi-pro league where a lot of former pros and young college hopefuls play. So I got a little bit of taste with some really good competition there, and then that was it. And then I moved to LA, and I stopped playing. I miss it. But yeah, so that's my baseball. My dad was a big player, and he played in high school, and he auditioned. He had a tryout. Back in the day, they were called the Sandlots, and they would come and they would see a lot of local kids. They call it the Sandlot tryouts. And my dad, you had to pick where you wanted to try out, and you could pick which position. And my dad was kind of wavering between first and third, but he played third in high school. But he thought maybe first base looked a little stacked, so he went to third base, and he ended up trying out only against one other guy at third base, and it was Tony Conigliaro. So I think he got a little overshadowed. But that's my dad's baseball story. He was always like the best hitter in the neighborhood. That was like the legend of my dad. So so that's how I was a big, baseball was like a big thing in our house.
Yeah. Did your game ever find its limit, or did you feel like you had more? Because look, you were right there, borderline for that Division III team. Another year, another time, easily good enough to make that team, right?
Yeah.
Would you have gotten any better at that point, or were you going to be?
I don't think so. I think I did the most with what I had. I never was gifted with a great arm. I could hit really well. I was a really good hitter. My fielding was average. My running was average. I mean, my running was pretty good for high school, but not to like when you go and try out for the Red Sox. I actually went to one of their open tryouts because you can, if you're playing any kind of league in the summer, they have these open tryouts and you can just show up. So for fun, a bunch of us showed up. You had to wear your uniform to show that you were playing. So a bunch of us went, and they basically just to weed people out, they do the 60-yard dash, and then whatever position you play, they put you for a long throw. So I was at first, they put us way like almost in right field to make that throw to third. And they would do the same thing with the third baseman, or if you're in the outfield. So they just wanted to see your arm and then your speed. And if you didn't have that, then you weren't. Then they would have a scrimmage game. They would pick the best like 25 guys and kind of plug people in for a scrimmage. So out of like 200 guys. So I didn't make the scrimmage. My 60 I think was like about 7.2, which was okay. It's decent, but like if you have to really blaze to show them how fast you are. And my arm was terrible. Like my ball was like just like a rainbow.
Oh, humpy.
That's like a long throw. If you don't have a gun, I mean it's going to show.
Yeah.
So I didn't even get to show them my bat. And my bat was my strongest quality. But at UMass. They gave us 7 swings at UMass to walk on. And it was like, if you didn't hit 4 of them out, that was it. So I think I hit 1 off the fence. But then I just hit some line drives and they were like, all right, well, he's not a power hitter. So that was it for that.
Right. Yeah. And it's first base, right? Yeah. They can pick.
It's a disposable. They kind of throw people there. Yeah. It's not that's why I played first. Cause I wasn't, I didn't have an arm. So I just played first.
But let me ask you this, like legitimately, like, not bragging, but if you would have done the 60-yard dash next to Mike Greenwell and Mo Vaughn and thrown with them, are they any better at that than you were?
I mean, Greenwell is probably faster, I guess. Mo maybe wasn't. I don't know if Mo was he wasn't like super slow, but he wasn't a blazer. But he probably hit bombs. That's why I used to go watch the college games. Like at UMass, I watched a bunch of the college games. I any local games near Boston, I would go see him because I love baseball. And there would always be that one big guy that was like, you could see he was not great in the field and he wasn't fast, but then when he got up, you'd be like, oh yeah, he'll hit a bomb. And you'd be like, well, that's why he's on the team. He's hitting bombs. So you have to have something, but I don't know about Greenwell, but they definitely didn't have strong arms in the field. Greenwell didn't have a strong
arm. Yeah. Neither one of those guys.
Damon never threw very hard either. He had a weak arm.
Damon is my guy who, if you're better than him, you're probably a Hall of Famer. Like you can't be any Buckner too.
Yeah. You mean guys that are like teetering on the Hall, you mean?
Yeah. Like if you're like, those guys are the boss of that level. And so if you can be better than them, okay, we'll look at you for the Hall. But like, you can't get closer to 3,000. Yeah. Well, Ray Bonds can, but there's these guys that are just so good, but nobody's crying because Johnny Damon didn't get in. Nobody's crying that Bill Buckner didn't get in, right?
Yeah.
So these guys were as good as you could be.
I was so happy that Rice got in. I thought that Rice was very deserving. He was like my first favorite player, Jim Rice. And I still kind of think Evans, he's like right on that edge too. He's like Damon, because Evans was probably the most dominant right fielder for 5. They always say you need to dominate for 5 to 7 years to be in the Hall. Like you need to dominate. And there probably wasn't a better right fielder than Evans. He had the best gun. But he just didn't quite get there with his stats, He was
big right field, center field.
Yeah,
most of the ball. It's huge. Yeah, yeah. And I feel like the difference there is that people want Dewey in, but they don't necessarily care that Johnny Damon gets in, right? Like there's a difference.
Yeah, he's never going to get in. But there have been guys I'm surprised got in. There have been guys recently. I'm like, it feels a little watered down to me, but I don't know. Yeah. I think Vizquel should be in. I'm a big Vizquel guy. Like
he's not in because he did some evil things to people. That's
I didn't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
what was his thing? What was his deal?
If I remember correctly, he's a spousal abuser, and then there was a special needs kid that he physically abused and potentially sexually abused.
Oh, I didn't know any of that. Oh, wow.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but those are the basic things, right? And so he was trending. He was going to get in because he was climbing, because he's better than borderline. So he was going up and up and up, and then all that came out, and it was.
Great, I didn't even know that. Yeah, because I feel like he was just he was the best. I mean, I've never seen a better fielder. He's to me the best I've ever seen. He was so great. Yeah, he was just like
better than Ozzy. You think?
I think for my money, obviously they're both like top notch. Ozzy is great, but this to me, I mean, Vizquel, how many gold gloves did he? I don't have them in front of me, but he probably won as many. So I know as many or more than Ozzy. Ozzy was Ozzy had the World Series. He was more of a clutch hitter. And he did some stuff in the postseason. So, but yeah, they were both great. Ozzy definitely had the reputation, But Vizquel Vizquel had the longevity. He had a lot of gold gloves.
Most games ever at short was Vizquel.
Did he? Okay, wow. Yeah. Too bad about that stuff.
Jeter, I think, is number 2.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised Jeter's not 1. Wow.
Yeah. Well, only because Vizquel hung around
Shortstop.
to his mid-40s.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Right. At shortstop.
Yeah, because Franco
Yeah.
played until he was like 90, right?
Oh my
Franco,
God. Yeah,
remember
yeah,
him?
yeah.
He just kept
Yeah. No, he probably legitimately could still hit, like, at a high level. Like, he could probably play minor league ball right now.
Yeah.
And be useful. Yeah, it's crazy. All right, let's talk about acting a little bit.
Sure.
So, when someone says, first off, when someone says they're an actor, they just say, I'm also like, we have these, and I'm in the same way. Like, I'm a podcaster. I'm a podcast producer. I'm also an executive producer. I do, and I've got to like have this whole thing that I talk about,
Sure.
So when you go to a party, what is it that you say that you do?
I say I'm an actor writer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actor,
And then
writer.
if we talk more, I tell them about what I got going on, but I mean, I'm primarily an actor. I came out to LA as an actor. And I wasn't a writer at that point. I was a stand-up comic from Boston in the early to mid 90s. I was a stand-up guy. But when I came to LA, I didn't really dig the stand-up scene that much. It just disillusioned me really quickly, because in Boston it was really fun and we all got lots of time. You put in your dues and you work your way up the ladder in Boston, and then you get I was hosting, I was getting paid, I was running around all over New England doing shows. And then you come to LA and they're like, you got to wait for 5 hours at the Comedy Store. And then you get 3 minutes at 2:30 in the morning. And there's like 3 guys in the audience left and they're going after you. And I was bartending at night, making money. And then any free night I had, I was taking an acting class. So I just didn't want to have my life become hanging out at the clubs. I wanted to just learn how to act. And then I was bartending, making money. So I just had to pay the bills. So I kind of dropped out of stand-up. And I think it was the right move. I thought if I had a really killer act that was really going to be my thing, I probably would have stayed in stand-up. But I didn't think I was, I wasn't crushing it. Like, I saw guys like, Dane Cook and, Gary Gulman and Bill Burr, I saw what they were doing and I'm like, I can't do what they do. That's not my thing, So I segued into just, and I just focused on acting, and then I, started getting work pretty quickly. So, I got lucky.
It's interesting. Yeah, well, shoot, we all have to, right? I was going to say that probably later on, I probably would have said, everybody I talked to who does it, like, hey, could someone else follow your path? And almost all of them who have any kind of success, and I consider you a success in this, right?
Thank you.
Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I got lucky. I kept at it, and so like there wasn't any big like I was none of that. It was like I kept grinding. I got to a point where I think I couldn't do it anymore several times, and then one thing worked out, and then bam, I was on my way, and the rest of it was manageable. So there's so many stories like that, and you're right. If you're on stage and you're hosting, and like you're like I opened up for Joe Rogan or whatever it is, right? Like all those Boston guys, Barry Katz is out there developing.
Barry was here in LA. I met with him. I met with him.
Yeah.
That was like one of my first things. I'm like, I got to meet Barry Katz, and then he was really nice to me, really, really kind. But I mean, he was, he was like, he basically just said, keep in touch. Let me know if you have more going on. At the time, I had very little going on.
Right.
That was it.
Which is a big note for you, right? Like he's not going to get you on a TV show. He's not going to represent you. He might represent you in the future, but you're going to have to do more work, right? I know Barry. He's a wonderful dude, but he also is like he's going to be honest with you, right? And
of course,
I don't have time to. Yeah, it's interesting. So you get to the point where you're thinking, I don't want to go sit at the Comedy Store and wait hours and hours to. Oh, here comes Chris D'Elia. He just took my spot. Oh shit! It's like, these things happen. The Comedy Store. I live in Orange County, so I get to go to the Comedy Store. I'm really good friends with Jay Moore, so
nice.
I saw him on Sunday night, as a matter of fact.
Cool.
And so I get the ins and outs of that, and you can look and say, I want to have a TV show, but from where you're at, there's 27 dudes in front of you who are waiting to get a TV show, and you're like, looking around. But the same thing can be said about like I've got these auditions, and you go in, and you're like, there's 20 of me in here, And then you got to somehow figure out how to stand out there. So how did you figure out how to book these procedurals like you do so well and everything else that you do?
For me, well, coming out of Boston, out of the stand-up scene, coming to LA, I was very comfortable in the room and auditioning. Everything was in the room back then. Now it's all self-tapes. But I always had high confidence. I always had great comedic timing, just naturally. I think you're born with it. You have it or you don't. And then I jumped into a class. I learned kind of, some basic stuff, and it helps you stay sharp. I studied with this guy named Aaron Spicer, who was, he's still around. He's a great coach. I did it for my first couple of years. And then in regards to just standing out, I learned that when I didn't really understand it at the time, but it's not about standing out. It's just about doing what you do. It's doing your thing and knowing that you're enough. Like, you're unique. Each person is unique. Like for me, there aren't anybody that's exactly like me. I mean, there are types, obviously, like you look at a guy like Michael Malley is like my type, Michael Imperioli is my type, but when the role is mine, casting directors know me at this point. They know that I'm going to come in and do my thing. And if they want my thing, if it's my gig, it'll just be my gig. I don't have to push and try to be perfect. And, I've had auditions where I wasn't perfect and I still booked the role, So, but when you're younger, you think you have to do something special. You think, oh, I got to really nail it. I got to take a risk somewhere and do something special, but it's not about that. It's about just, go in, have fun, do your thing, be honest. And that's it. I mean, 99% of the actors, in my opinion, this is what I think. Most people do too much because they're trying too hard. Like whenever I coach someone, I've coached people and I've coached friends that have booked series regulars and guest stars. And they know it's just about going in and doing your thing and that's it. And then let it go. You don't have to be perfect. If it's meant to be, it'll be your gig. So yeah, is that a long story short answer to your question? My first gig was a pilot for Fox. It was called Costello, right? This Boston comic, Sue Costello. She was going to be the next Roseanne. She was a blue collar working class comic from South Boston. This is in '98. It was my very first TV audition. And I literally, someone just told me, hey, they're looking for people with Boston accent. You should submit to this. This is back in 98.
Yeah.
I had been in LA like a year and a half, barely, like a little over a year. It was in the spring of '98. So I literally just put my headshot in a manila envelope, dropped it in the mailbox. Deb Borowski was the casting director. God bless her. She's still around. But so I get called into audition. I go in. The first thing I do is I get a private lesson with Aaron Spicer. He immediately tells me, like, we read the first scene. He goes, oh, this is your role. This is you. Just do what you're doing. That's it. So that put me at ease. And then I get in the room and I read with Deb. And before I even finish, he's like, okay, I'm going to call you back. Here's the callback information, blah, blah, blah. So I get to the callback because that was just like a pre-read. Get to the callback and there's 50 guys like me. But every Boston comic that was in LA was in that room. It was tons so it was like having a party. And then so I read, I get in, it goes well. I get another call. I end up going back like 4 times and end up reading against all kinds of actors that I knew from my childhood. But I was just the guy, and I got along with Sue, and then I ended up booking it. And it wasn't about being great. It was just about me being me and hitting my beats, and that was it. And then it aired, and they didn't really use me again, but it was a good lesson that I could do it, that I could be on on a sitcom. So, and then I went back to my bartending job and was scooping up ketchup off the floor, and I did that for 5 years in between acting jobs.
Right.
Because that's how it is. They told me at Costello, they were like, oh, you're not going to have to bartend anymore. This is going to go 7 years. You're going to be part of the show, Right. And then, cut to 5 years later. I didn't even have an agent when I booked it. I did it myself. I had done it myself.
Wow.
And I gave my commercial agent the 10% so that they could at least help me with the contract. And then I still couldn't find an agent. Even after I booked the pilot, I was like, dropping off headshots with cover letters saying, hey, I just booked this pilot for Fox. It's, it got picked up. Can you sign? And nobody wanted me. Nobody cared. Because, I was young and I had 1 credit. But then I was taking workshops. I was taking casting director workshops and meeting a lot of casting directors. And that was really a smart move on my point. Like I was going to like 1 or 2 a week for like 2 years. Yeah. And I just started booking little TV roles.
I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this because, my friends are like, I want to write something, or they have written something. And I'm like, send it over to me. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, look, I'm not going to steal it. Just let me read it. I'll tell you what I think.
About that either.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But there's people that are precious. And then I'll say, here's what you need to do. I've read your thing. It's pretty good. You should submit it for some contest for screenwriting.
Yeah. There are some that are good.
Yeah. But either way, I mean, look, these guys haven't gotten anywhere. Right. Sure. And so I'm like, it's a good place to put your stuff in front of people who want to make scripts. That's why they're there, and they'll give you notes. And if you win, you know you have something good, continue to enter it. That's how you develop, you know, whatever it's going
I
to be.
just would tell them
Get in
not to
front of-
waste too much money on the contest. I'm not that like there are a
Fair
very
enough.
small handful that are well run, respected contests, but there's a
But if you
lot of
don't know
ones that are
where to
just a
go
waste of money.
next,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you don't know where to go
You
next,
gotta
know,
meet
like,
people. You gotta meet people. And
Yeah, you gotta
if you're
meet
not in LA and you're not or New York and you're not meeting people, then you gotta just shoot your own stuff. You gotta just create stuff. That's the only way to do it. You gotta create. You gotta meet your people, meet your team, and that are the same level as you, and just rise together and make stuff.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it.
there is. However you do it, you do have to bet on yourself at some point in most
Sure.
cases, you know, whether you're submitting to these contests or paying money to be in LA and go do a circuit of people and sit in front of whatever it's going to be, you have to invest in yourself first, right? And make something happen.
Sure. Yeah. You got to be confident and you got to know your worth and you got to just network. You got to find your tribe. That's the most important thing, I think, you know?
Yeah. You talked about, you know, like the David Mamet classic line, and, you know, like tell the truth, right? You know, show up on time, you know, hit your mark, tell the truth, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
and less is more. So many people move around too much.
Oh,
they do too much. Stillness. I tell them, look at Eastwood. Look at Eastwood in a close up. Look what he does. Nothing.
Yeah.
He does nothing. Just, you know, he's there. He says his honest line, and that's it. Like, you don't.
Yeah.
People move around too much. You know, that's.
He might crinkle his eyes a little bit.
He may crinkle, but that's a little scowl.
But that's his thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that truth, right? Like, you know, you show up, Michael Imperioli, you know, whatever, right? There's a guy from my hometown who's done a bunch of work. His name's Michael Gaston, and he's worked with everybody. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he does when he stands there is he stands there. He looms. Yeah. He can be the cop. He can be the bodyguard. He can be these guys. And so he gets work all the time, you know, and and when the guys who do that work ahead of you, because they've been there longer, when they pass away, you know, like, oh yeah, we can't get so-and-so. We're going to get Michael. And look, Michael's career, he's worked with everybody. I don't want to say he's worked with Al Pacino. He's a guy they call when they want his truth in the room, you know, and they'll get some lines and everything else, but it's amazing.
It's funny you say that they're going to pass away because a friend of mine, I was just chatting with it. Well, like going back and forth with a friend of mine online. And he was saying he produces projects and films and all kinds of things. But he was saying that, you know, he put breakdowns out not too long ago, like last year or something. And he had like, you know, I'm not going to get the numbers exactly, but you get the idea. One of the roles was like, you know, 18 to 22. And he had like, you know, 2,000 submissions. Then another role was like 30 to 35. And he had like 700 submissions. But then he had one that was like, you know, 50 to 65 or whatever. And he had like, you know, 50. And he's like, guys, just stick around because as you get older, there's less competition. So I joked, you know, that's my game, you know, my long game. I'm going to be here till everybody else dies, and then when I'm like 70, I'll get all the gigs.
But there is some truth to that. Like, if that person has that job, then they have that job, and you're going to have to wait for an opportunity to take that role from them,
or make your own opportunity.
Or make your own opportunity. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the guy who Michael is very much like, you know, he just,
go ahead. I'm looking him up.
Okay.
Michael Gaston.
Yeah. Michael Gaston. Yeah.
Gaston.
Oh man, I'll think of his name. He's another guy just very much like him. He's got like a bald head. He's passed away, but he's like the perfect guy. And it's like, oh, Michael will get those roles now, you know, like high-end actor, like
I see him.
Big movies.
He kind of reminds me in his main picture. He kind of reminds me of the guy from
Howard Booth.
Hill Street Blues. The guy from Hill Street Blues. Is that the show I'm thinking of?
Maybe.
You know who I'm talking about? I forget his name, but
Daniel Travanti?
No, the other guy. He was like, maybe I'm thinking of a different show, but it was a guy that had the black mustache, and he looks a lot like he has a similar look, you know. But yeah, he's great. He looks great. This guy. Yeah, he's got a great look.
Yeah, Powers Booth was the guy I was trying to think of. He finally.
But yeah, Powers Booth was from Tombstone. He was in Tombstone. He was in a lot of things.
Right.
And he's the one who says, "I feel so capital."
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and then he goes, "Well, bye." Powers. That's classic. Yeah.
Right. And so Michael's probably a little more physically imposing, but you know, Powers Booth filled a lot of those roles where he didn't need to do much, right? Yeah. And he just had this thing about him. And so, and again, like zero any sense, Michael Gaston has a career you dream of having. Like, you know, he works all the time. He works all the time. fantastic projects, and he's just there, right? And this is the thing I like to ask people: if your dream is to go act, right, like you're a handsome comedian from Boston, I'm going to give it a shot, and you're a guy who for the next 40 years fills roles in procedurals, that ultimately becomes work at some point, right? And you have to find your creative outlet somewhere else. But that's your dream. You've accomplished it. And it's so easy to not realize that. I know a lot of folks are like, I love doing what I do. I get paid a lot of money to do these things. However, and like a lot of their creative bandwidth is used up because they're so busy. And so there is like this, I don't know, it's not a catch-22, right? But there is a merry-go-round. You have to ride the merry-go-round. And if you get really good on the merry-go-round, you never get to leave it, and so that can be a bit of a curse. Is it a curse? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it depends. It's also random on what kind of gigs you happen upon, I mean, like I'm not for example, I'm not a soap opera guy, but I've done, I think 5 soaps, but they're all like, 1 or 2 episodes come and go, but had I booked the contract on a soap, I probably wouldn't be the happiest guy every day. I mean, I would be very, very grateful for the gig, and I would do it wholeheartedly and do my best.
Of course, you'd be a professional.
But if I could pick, is that what I want to do for the next 10 years? No.
And if you woke up 40 years later,
there were just certain, I mean, like for me personally, like a dream show for me to be on is a show like Barry. I was able to do 1 episode of Barry. Thankfully, I love that. But like a show like that, that's like beautifully written and dark and funny, and like every week is a little movie, and the way it's shot is so creative. And working with a guy like Hader, like to me, that is like the perfect gig. Like if I could get a show like that and do like 40 episodes over like 5 years, 8 a year, like to me, that would be the ideal, I mean, would it be the most money? No. But like the best money would be, a network TV show, being the third cop, making, $50,000 a week for 22 episodes for 7. That would be amazing. But like
Richard Belzer is a perfect example.
I mean, I always think of, why am I forgetting his name, from NYPD Blue? That dude, the Chicago guy, Dennis Franz.
Oh yeah,
Dennis Franz played the same guy his whole career. He never did anything, and he was a Chicago guy that was playing a New York cop. That did not sound like he was from New York, but did it matter? No. But like that's a great career. He made tons of money, and I'm sure I don't know how happy he was doing it, but like you want to do interesting stuff. You want to be in the best. For me, at least, like the most artistic stuff. Like I'd love to do beautiful movies, like we just watched Conclave the other day, my wife and I. To me, it's been my favorite so far, and Honora I loved, and The Brutalist was great. But like, I mean, being part of a film like that, it would be like amazing. But am I going to do a low budget indie that's not well written? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to have fun, but you can't. It's hard to pick. It's really hard to pick how your career goes, basically.
Yeah.
That's like the
Dennis Farina comes to mind too. It's another guy who had a nice balance. Right. Yeah. But when he's a
big inspiration for me. Big inspiration.
Oh, is he? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Well, he's, to me, a guy like me, like just a regular blue collar guy that was like, why don't I try this? And he's just, he's got his own thing. He plays the same guy he never showed different sides of him. He was just the same guy, but he was so good at what he did. And so funny. And that's his roles, the kind of roles that he got. Like I'd love like him, like Joe Pantoliano, guys like that. Like those are guys that I really, really look up to, that would love to have, careers like that. Even like a guy like, do you know who John Kapelos is?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like I've met John. We did a film together a while back, and we stayed in touch online a little bit. But like that's a guy, like that's almost like a perfect career in my mind. Like he's done so many great films, and he always pops up on TV shows, and he actually has been able to show his range in different parts. Like he'll play different ethnicities and accents. Like if you look at his stuff, he's an amazing actor. So just a guy like that, like that's like an inspiration to me, having a career like that. Just to always be working though, always be working.
I'm sure there's only one John Kapelos, but it's the guy I'm thinking of. He resonated with John Hughes. And so John Hughes is like, and here's a job, and here's a job. Because he played a very important character that was John Hughes used quite a lot in his stuff, So
Yeah, and I remember him telling me about the Breakfast Club. You remember him in the Breakfast Club? He was the janitor.
Sure.
For him, so much of his stuff got cut in that movie. Like his role was a lot bigger. And he said when he watches it, it's like they chopped off one of his arms seeing the role, because so much got on the cutting room floor because they just didn't have time for it. I mean, it wasn't his fault. They just had to trim it down to make it, what it was. That was probably his big break, I would think. That was maybe the first one he did with Hughes, and then he did Weird Science a little after that. And
16 Candles, was he in that also or no? Because he
he
was the Rizjeks, right?
Yes. Was that? Yeah, I'm getting confused. And then in Weird Science, he was in the bar and he played like a slick
Puerto Rican guy or whatever,
army guy or something. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
So anyways,
but there you go. There's a guy you don't think of every day. Like you said his name, I happen to know his name.
And also he happened to look 40 at like 25, and then he stayed looking 40 for like 25 years. So that helped him too.
Right.
How you look helps out a lot,
It's funny, as I've talked to a lot of actors on the show, and you get all these little insights. Like Mark Valley's a friend of mine. Mark Valley's done a bunch of shows. He was like the other lawyer on Boston Legal. He's been a leading man, handsome, fantastic. And he's like, sometimes my job is just to be handsome and fantastic. I don't have to do anything,
Right.
Like he was in Hurt Locker, and what's her name? Bigelow. She was directing. She's like, no, back up. He's like getting closer and closer to the airplane that he's the pilot for. And he's like, I'm not even in the shot,
right.
But that was his job. They didn't need him to be handsome. He just needed to go. And he knew how to do that.
Piece. Yeah. Serve the piece. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it can be tough on your ego, right? Like if you are not seasoned.
Brutal. Yeah. Seasoned or not, it can be brutal. It doesn't even matter. Yeah. I've been told in the same week, this was a long time ago, but I think this was actually like 2011. So I had already been around for about 14, 15 years. And worked enough that I was very confident. But I think I was told in the same week, one of my auditions, they told my agent, he's too green. I was like, green? And then that same week, I was given a role without auditioning, like, straight booked. They said because they wanted a really strong actor that they knew they could come in and just nail it. So in the same week.
Right.
So it's like it can knock you down. You can't let it get. I don't let stuff like that get to me.
Yeah. You develop, if you're going to survive, you develop that tough skin, that muscle.
Yeah,
to be able to say, whatever.
It comes with working. For me, it comes with just being around and doing it so many times. It's like I know what it is to do it. You know your limitations. You know that you could be the best actor in the world, but if you're put in the wrong position, you're going to look bad. Yeah. And you can be awful, you can be terrible, and they can put you in something, and then they edit it in a way that you look brilliant. And it goes both ways. So you can't beat yourself up.
And sometimes your job is to be the thing that everybody despises, in that piece, like Glenn Close from Fatal Attraction, right? And we all believed her. Like, so I still don't like Glenn Close because of that movie. Like I know better, right? But she was so great in that you're just like,
she's brilliant.
Yeah, right.
Streep and Close, same thing to me. They're so amazing. They can do anything. They can just do anything. We can put them in anything.
Yeah. And I don't know how they shapeshift like that, but they sure as heck do. Because I've seen Meryl Streep be completely unattractive and be very, very, very sensual. It's crazy with them. One of the things that Mark was talking about one time was like the staging and blocking. And if you have an understanding of that, that's another element of being a seasoned actor. So like he had a scene where he's walking around like the patio on the White House, right? Mm-hmm. And the guy on the inside who makes that turn has to make it a little bit slower. So the guy on the outside isn't like trying to keep up, because you got this 2-shot and they go around like that. You have to. It takes some experience.
I think that just comes with experience. That comes with, at the beginning, I never knew where I was going to. Like, I remember one guy grabbed me being like, dude, he like literally pulled me. He's like, this is your shot, dude. Get into the light and get into your camera angle, but that just comes with experience. You start to know your good angles and, how to, make yourself look the best. And then it's just about knowing what the director wants to do and where your place is in the scene. Yeah. And then hopefully you're making, like, if you come with like making your own stuff, helps you learn about that too, when you're on the other side of the camera and you can see how it's done that way. So it's all learning, and you're always learning. You never stop learning.
Jay Moore was telling me this story, but when he was on Jerry Maguire, does a scene with Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise, I'm trying to get higher up. Tom Cruise is basically pointing at his stomach and he's directing Jay's eye line. to the other shoulder. You know, I think that's how he does. But
yeah, and
you
I know
like they're in this scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jay's one of these guys. He just like puts a laser beam on you, and you're just like, oh god! Like even in real life, like he has this thing where like you have to learn how to withstand his energy that comes at you. You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but Tom is so good. He's doing all of that with Jay, and still has the consciousness to go. Like he's got multiple things he can keep track of in his brain while he's doing this incredible acting job, and he directs Jay this way to save the, you know. And it's like, wow, man, that's crazy to me that you can be so focused, but still also have this other directorial brain in your head.
Sure. Well, Cruz is like one of one. He's like, you know, he's the best. Now, Jay Moore, I remember seeing like a clip. I think I saw a clip online. His improv is like legendary during that shoot, right? Jay Moore is like, didn't he have that one scene where they just let him go and he goes on and on and on and on, and it's just like him improving and and it's like legendary, you know. So tell him, you know, I said cheers to him for that.
I will. I'll let him know. I was talking to him earlier today. Yeah. It is amazing. He also so here's the thing too. Again, it's inside baseball, but you'll get this. He's like, watch, because I was helping him for a while, being like his not his assistant, but like his guy that could come do things with him when he didn't want to be alone. And he's like, watch what's gonna happen. We're gonna go to Pauly Shore's house. I'm gonna be standing right next to Pauly. And the guy directing this, it was what's that, Comedy or Die? The guy directing this comedy short, he's not even going to know I'm there. He's going to wonder where I'm at, and I'll be standing next to Pauly the entire time, and they'll think that I'm fucking around, but I'll be there and I'm ready. And so no shit, all of that happened. And he's like, and then later on they're going to do this, and they just had a perception of him that either he created through his actions before or whatever it was, but there was just nothing he could do to be in the right place at the right time for them, even though he was literally in the right place, right time.
Weird. Yeah. Do you mean Funny or Die? Is that what you meant? Like a
Funny or Die. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. You know, and it's no big deal, but these are those are really informal shoots. You know, no one's getting too serious about this stuff. Right. Everybody did their job, but it was just funny to see that, you know, he could predict what would happen because he had seen it happen to him over and over again. So even if he's had a drug problem, right? And so that makes you hard to work with at times. But even if you're not hard to work with, they still expect you to be hard to work with.
Oh, weird. Yeah. That's too bad.
Yeah. So what are you writing right now? Or do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I always have like 3 or 4 projects I'm kind of bandying about, but I've been really focusing on this one project that I've been developing for almost like 10 years now, but it's a sci-fi project about this lonely tow truck driver kind of in the middle of nowhere in the desert, and the world's about to end, and he's stuck there. He can't leave. He has an ankle bracelet, and he ends up befriending a zombie. And it's a very weird story, but it's almost like he ends up adopting this zombie who is, even though he became a zombie, his spirituality remains intact. And he's the main guy is so desperate for connection that he takes his zombie in, even though the zombie's trying to eat him every once in a while. But he becomes its only friend, and it becomes just a story about their friendship. It's Up to My Lou. So it started as a feature. At one point, a couple of years ago, I made it into a limited series because a friend of mine read it and said, you know, this really feels like a show to me. It feels episodic, and I hadn't actually thought of it that way. So then I ended up writing 8 episodes. And I made it into an 8-episode series. I have it that, and then still I was like, what else could I do with this? Should I try to produce it? Should I? Because it's not so low budget that I would, you know, I mean, it would be easier if I sold it and got a big name attached to play the lead guy. But I ended up last year, near the end of the year, thinking, you know what? I've always wanted to write a book. Maybe this would be a fun thing to adapt into a novel. So I wrote a novel last year. And it's always fun writing it in a new form, like going from feature to 8 episodes. I really expanded the story and discovered so many new nooks and crannies to bring the story. And then the novel was another way to expand on that and to go even further. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me know the story so well. It's almost like the story is telling me, look, this is what I want to become. So now I have the book. So I just started reaching out to some book agents to see if I can get some bites with that. But if not, I'm going to self-publish it. And I'm probably going to, if I don't get an agent right away, I'm going to be kind of antsy about it because I'm not going to wait too long. But I'll probably get the audiobook produced. I have a friend who does audiobooks, so I might do that. And then we'll see. Maybe I'll get some kind of name actors to come in to read with me. That's kind of like what I would like to do. But I'd love to get like a musician to play the zombie, honestly. Like, or I mean, I have a lot of ideas of
who do you have in mind?
Like ideally, one of my first, he's not a musician, but I worked on Everybody Hates Chris for a bunch of episodes, and I would love Tyler, the lead kid, who's now on Abbott Elementary. I kind of want him to play the lead. I also like someone like The Weeknd, someone like that, but it could go so many different ways. It could be like someone like Jelly Roll. Like it can go so many. I just want someone that when they come on screen, they have a presence, and because he doesn't talk throughout the whole movie. You hear his thoughts, but he doesn't speak. He just basically growls through the whole movie. But it's almost like if you've ever seen a movie called Swiss Army Man. You ever see that movie? Swiss Army Man was with Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe. And he finds Radcliffe, and Radcliffe is a corpse. And he ends up befriending the corpse. It's a really weird movie, but it was written and directed by the Daniels. They did Everybody, We Were All at Once. And it's just a beautiful movie. I had already written Skip to My Lou and was developing it, and it had been several years. But when Swiss Army Man came out, it made me so happy that it existed, because I'm like, yes, this is the tone of what I'm trying to convey, and this is the kind of movie I want to make. And it did pretty well. It made some money, but that's the vibe. If you ever get a chance to see Swiss Army Man, that's the kind of the vibe of my story. But it takes place.
Have you ever seen Warm Bodies?
No, but several people have told me to look at it. And then he's a zombie who ends up becoming human at the end or something. Is that what happens? He slowly becomes human.
It's a rom-com.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. And so, it's a zombie falls in love with a regular girl, and they're in love and everything. Yeah,
I need to watch it. At the early on, I just was like, I don't want to see it because I don't want it to influence me.
I get you.
But that one comes up a lot. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to play the lead guy myself. His name's Lou, the lead guy. I would love to play Lou. I would crush it. But I just don't know for it to be financially viable. Like it needs to be like
that's a thing,
right? Jim Carrey or Adam Sandler or there's so many different ways.
Sure.
Zach Galifianakis, things like that. I would love like a comic that wants to do something dramatic.
How much money do you need to make this thing? Like if you went full indie, and like just talk Jim Carrey into doing it, like how much hell?
If we've got no names, we could do it for $1 million. Probably do it really, really well, because it's a lot of it's contained and not that many locations. But if you're gonna get some names, you probably need maybe $3 or $4 million to come in and pay somebody $1 million to play the lead. And then it depends, I'm gonna find a way to get the story out, because it's such a beautiful story, and to me it's like a tearjerker in the end, and it's a beautiful, beautiful story. And it's funny. It's funny. I had never heard this song. In the story, it never rains. It's very dry, and that's one of the reasons why the world is ending. The sun is just unbearable, and the heat's so unbearable. But it's kind of well known amongst everybody on Earth that there's going to be a flood any day now, and once the flood starts, that's when it's over. That's when the world is done. And in the story, everybody's time traveling because they found a way to time travel. So everybody's leaving. That's why Lou is the only one. He thinks he's going to be the last man on Earth at the end. That's why he befriends zombie. He's like, who am I going to ride this out with? Because everybody's waiting for the rain. I had never heard this song by Randy Newman. I Think It's Gonna Rain Today. Have you ever heard that song?
No, Is it like an LA song?
No, I had never heard it, but he was in the LA he had an article in the LA Times about a month ago, Randy Newman, and he mentioned how he sold his music, but there was certain songs he hoped they really wouldn't use because they're more precious to him. And he kept mentioning, I Think It's Gonna Rain Today. He's like, they own it now, but I really hope they don't
know this song.
Then I played it, and it was like, oh my God, this is my song for the final credits. Like when the end happens, this is the song,
Well, let's go to his house. We'll bring him some cookies and see if
let's bring him cookies. Yeah. And I'll that's a good idea. Anyways, but I even wrote that into the script now. Yeah. But it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous song. So hopefully everybody watches it and they're crying at the end. Yeah, go ahead.
How many legitimate projects can you have in your palette at one time, even if they're backburnered and don't require your attention? How many conversations can you have about projects? Because like I'm in the same boat. I haven't made anything all the way through yet, but they're all in some form of we're going to get it done, right? And as soon as the opportunity comes, I bang on it for a while, and I'm like, I moved it forward, right? So
yeah, I think it's just if you have stuff ready to go, the more the better. I had like for me, I probably have 3 or 4 that I feel like are ready to go. I have like 2 that my manager is actively pitching around town right now.
Yeah,
one's like a horror comedy, and one is an action comedy.
right.
So this is not including Skip, which is another one that they know about, but I'm kind of doing it kind of on my own right now. But every once in a while I tell them, hey, can you swing this script to this company? And they'll be like, yeah, we'll send it over, but they have 2 that they really love that they're pitching. But yeah, I mean, it just depends. Yeah, you can have as many as you I mean, the more you write, the better. I have like 4 or 5 others, and they're just kind of very niche things that, like, if something specific comes up, like, hey, we want a story, like I have one that's teenagers, a rom-com with teenagers. If somebody wants something specifically for teenagers, I'll say, well, I have this thing, and then it becomes, do they like the vibe of it? So yeah, I think it's just as many as you had, the more the better, and then you find out what somebody's looking for. My horror comedy is contained. Some people want to contain things, some people don't want to contain things. So
the next time someone comes up to me and says, Pete, because they know because of my ridiculous show, I gather authors and people that make things, but they're not in a position to bridge that gap between here and to a producer, to a manager, whatever, right? And so I don't know, once a month, once every other month, someone will call me and be like, hey, do you have any kind of stories in this realm here? Because they know that I might have something. And that got me to thinking, like, why don't I just start doing that? It's been incredible. But yeah, you have to manage a lot of things and decide where to put your energy. And when you're on the front end of stuff, it's like all effort. It's all effort. Because you can't put money into these things.
It's a long game. It takes a long time to develop. We're just at the point where my wife and I, we produced and starred in the film, and we're submitting to festivals. So we're starting the festival thing. So we'll see how that goes. But it's taken us 6 years to get it from concept to completed film. It just takes a long time. Unless you have a lot of money, then you can do it a lot faster. But we low budget. But we're real happy with the way it came out. So.
The guy that wrote Ford versus Ferrari, he didn't even get like the top writing credit on his story, and it took him 10 years to make,
Does he have a credit? Did he just get story?
He does. He got a credit. He had to share it with the, the Butterworth brothers, those guys?
Jed or something, or?
Yeah.
That's a good movie. That's a really good movie.
It's great, but it's a period piece and it's about race cars and, it all worked out, but he had to work forever on it, and, it's just not a gentle process, right? Like if you knew how long it was going to take, you'd be like, fuck, I'll do something easier. I'll go buy myself a concrete stamping, franchise.
I just went to an award show a couple nights ago called Award This from Film Threat. I don't know if you know what Film Threat is. I had never heard of this award thing, but they've been doing it for a while, I guess, and it was so much fun. But it's basically recognizing independent film, mostly low budget stuff. The movie Hundreds of Beavers won like best independent film of the year. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's doing really well.
Never saw it. No,
It's supposed to be really, really fun. I need to see it soon. But some of the people that I have this film that I co-wrote called Don't Say It. It's a romantic comedy. It got nominated for best indie romance. It comes out February 7th on streaming, so keep an eye out for it.
What's it called? Just put a link up there.
Don't Say It. If you put movie.com. And it's going to be on Amazon, iTunes. So it begins rental only, and then eventually it'll be on other things. But for now, it's and it was that movie. It was at the movie theaters for a week last year. It had a little run in LA, and it did really well. They did sold a lot of tickets. It's a really, really sweet, funny movie. But my point was, some of the people that would go up and when they got their award, they were like, it took us 10 years to finish this movie. One film, they said it took them 20 years from when they first came up with the idea and wrote it and get it produced. It's like, it's so much of it takes so long to finish, and you got to just do it. You have to enjoy it and just enjoy the ride when you do it, because it'll just drive you crazy. You can't worry about the results.
Yeah, that's like when you watch an award show and everybody's like, I can't believe we got this thing done. Like
February, did I say September? February. So it's this week.
Oh, February. Okay.
Yeah.
Did I say? I wrote September. My bad. I'll take that down and check that. February.
Thank you.
I don't know what month I think I'm in.
Yeah, it's what, Friday? I think it's the 7th Friday.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So Friday. Yeah. So Friday. It'll be a great Valentine's Day movie if you're interested in like something romantic and sweet and funny.
There you go.
It's like a When Harry Met Sally, but for like people approaching 60. Yeah. So
I don't want to take too much of your time. This is great, but I want to do it again. Is there anything you want to ask me before we move on?
I don't know. I didn't know much about the show when you reached out to me, but it seems really cool. What is your dream project right now to do? If you could do anything right now.
I'm getting to do a lot of things. I'm getting to work on a lot of things. We'll see if they're viable, right? So this is all part of the process. It doesn't seem like it's anybody outside of this business. You're like, no, I'm working very hard on these things, right? So, but my hometown, there was a very famous fight that happened in the 1880s, 1889.
Ooh.
And so this is back like when the OK Corral happened, same decade.
Yeah,
right? That's how far back in time we are. And it's one of the first most famous prize fights ever. And one of the guys who becomes the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, which is the man who beats the man. So he's the man that beats John L. Sullivan. And every heavyweight champ since then touches, his name is Gentleman Jim Corbett. They fought in a bay around my town in Benicia. And so they floated a barge out because fighting was illegal, prize fighting. And so they were there in my hometown. And it's just this great story. And then here's the thing is really no pictures from the time. Some newspaper sketches of things, but these are sketches. Like when I say sketch, I mean, it's a sketch of a mountain. It's like a big skibbly line, you know? And that's really all of the visual stuff. But the reporting, and I don't know if you know this, but the reporters in the 1800s had trained their brains to remember everything. And so they're watching this fight and maybe they're taking notes, but they're like right hand cross, bam, you know? Yeah. And so there's this blow by blow encounter of this fight. And there's this whole entire legacy of these dudes because the fight was so rich and so memorable back then. It was really the biggest fight for a long time that the story was told and they expanded it. And so all this stuff was there, but no one had really captured it. There's actually been a movie made about it, but like in the old days, it was like, we'll take this premise and make our own fucking movie, you know? So it doesn't really do it justice, but if I can get that movie made.
Do you have a title?
Right now it's called The Barge Fight. They fight on a barge fight, you know, it might change, but that's
because I love this idea. Yeah. This is a really, really intriguing idea. Yeah.
Well, when we disconnect here, I'll send you a link to the book. I'll even send you a book if you want.
Have you written anything for it, like a script or a treatment? Or
anything? You know, and this is one of these things where is this a feature? We thought it might be a documentary, but we've moved away from that. But if someone's like, I got money for a documentary, guess what it'll be? It'll be a documentary at that point. Yeah. But right now it's a feature, probably about not even be 200 minutes. I mean, it is because there's a lot of story here, right?
Yeah.
But it could easily become a series because there's a lot of characters. Because every early Hall of Fame fighter touches this world, you know, and so it's just it's fantastic, and it's my hometown, and I love my hometown, and I would love to support those guys. I'd love for them to all dig in their pockets.
So back then it was illegal to prize fight.
Yeah, in most of the nation, it was illegal to prize fight. Right, you can amateur fight, but you couldn't prize fight.
Do you know when it became? I'm just curious. Do you know when it became
California?
legal?
Nah, I don't know. It wasn't long after that.
So, because so did they have rounds?
Yeah, they had rounds.
How many rounds? Was it like 14?
So they called it a fight to the finish, right? Which doesn't mean anybody died, but it's like until the other guy couldn't go anymore. So it's long. I think it's 29 rounds, if my memory is correct on this. And
well, dude, there's your title. There's your title.
Yeah,
29
fight
rounds.
To the finish.
No, 29 rounds. That hit me. That hit me.
Here's the book.
Fight to the finish. The battle of
So both of these guys end up being Hall of Fame fighters, and it's a great story. And anyhow, that's the one that I'm today most. Ask me tomorrow, and I'll change my mind. Because all the stories I've got are incredible. They're just incredible, and I would love to see them get told in a different format.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of work, and a lot of people got to bet on me. I got to prove that I'm a viable bet.
Sure.
And
do you? So you have a feature script written?
There is. There are a couple of scripts, I don't want to say attempts. There's like legitimate attempts at it, but we've changed directions a couple of times. So right now the script is like 2/3 done in the current form, right? Okay. So we've changed a couple of things around.
Because I would say let's get the script in a place to show people. And do you know Ash Laser on Twitter?
No.
Ash Laser, Lazer. He does this thing with a couple other guys, I think, called the Stunt List, and they basically host scripts. But it's very well respected around the industry, and he gets lots of industry attention when the scripts are good. Like that would be to me. if I were you, I would get the script to a place where it's ready to be shown, and then reach out to. You can submit to his to the stunt list. It might be stuntlist.com. I'm not sure, but you can find Ash on Twitter. But he seems like a really great guy. But you could submit to that, and if he puts it on there and hosts it, then you never know. You could maybe get some bites, because to me it's a really great story. Like it's to me it's a movie. It's a movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is.
It could go anywhere. You're right. It could be TV show or documentary, but I would want to see that movie. I could see that being done, and then the fight is the climax, the 29 rounds. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. It's so good. I'll talk with you offline about it some more. But yeah, that's the thing I'm working on right now. But there's a couple other projects that are quite viable, and they're very, very, very exciting. I mean, that's
great.
It's my job is to be excited right now, right? Like when someone's like, you got anything on, because I used to be a spy, and so you got anything on the Iraq War, and I'm like, hold your hat, I got to, and it's like. because that's what I do now, right? Is I help find these things and get them from where they are to where they're a little bit more developed, and find a person.
And when anytime you're doing anything, regardless of what it is, I mean, the fact that you're a former spy, I mean, that's a great way to say this is who I am, is because they always want to hear the story behind the writer too. They love that.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm a playing guy from Little Italy. Well, who cares,
Right. Yeah.
I devoted my life to acting.
I don't know if you know Hilliard Guest. Do you know Hilliard? He's a screenwriter.
No.
He's a good friend of mine, and he's very successful. And he's like, when you pitch, because he taught me all this stuff. He's actually got a great podcast called Screenwriters Rant Room. But he's like, when you pitch, he's like, don't tell him your story. He's like, you got to tell him you. Like you're.
Oh yeah.
And he's like,
your story.
Exactly. Make them so desperate to hear your from hearing your story, they want to hear about the story that you're a mile ahead of everybody else. And it works. I tell them, I'm like, I did this. I was a spy, and all of a sudden I had this, and then this story popped in my lap because I know people, and I've worked on that because he's a smart dude. Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up, man. I appreciate you coming on. This is great. I loved it. I hope you have enjoyed it too. Let me hit stop this. Everybody, I will see you tomorrow, and I will see you in